कर दो। Good evening everyone. Welcome to Tathastu. So today we will be discussing a new topic as part of our series Dandi to Azadi. So as you know, we have covered a lot of topics, and in last class we had discussed about the Webble plan. We had also discussed Rajaji formula and Desai-Liaquat Pact. Before that we had seen Cripps mission, we had seen Quit India movement. All these things we have been covering. Along with these, there have been also certain developments which were happening outside India. Certain developments which were happening outside India. And those development was led by whom? Was none other than Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. So today we will discuss about Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose and his contributions. Before, in one lecture we had already seen the difference between Gandhi ji and Subhash Chandra Bose. दोनों के बीच जो difference था वो हम already देख चुके हैं. Good evening. So we had already seen the difference between the approach of Netaji and Gandhi ji. But today we will see his contribution with regard to Indian National Army, that is also called AZAD Hind FAUJ. तो आज़ाद हिंद फौज के बारे में आज देखेंगे क्या उसका कंट्रीब्यूशन था भारत की आज़ादी में. What was its contribution in India's independence? We'll see that, and we'll also see that how it helped in India getting its independence, how it helped India throw British out of our country. So let's start with the contribution of Subhash Chandra Bose. So as I was discussing, World War II had started. When it started? 1 September 1939. Okay. When World War II started, Bose wanted to utilize this opportunity to launch a full-fledged struggle against the British rule, to utilize this opportunity to gain independence. But this could not happen. Why this could not happen? Because the Gandhiji, Nehruji and other leaders of the Congress, they were not in favor of launching a full-fledged struggle against the British rule. So that's why this could not materialize, because of which Bose separated from Congress. He formed his own party called Forward Bloc. Then he went around the tour of India. He toured the whole country to awaken the mass for the next mass struggle. However, the response was not very enthusiastic. After that, in July 1940, a new movement was started. That was Holwell Monument Removal Movement. You must be wondering, what is this Holwell Monument and what was this movement all about? So basically, Subhash Chandra Bose had launched this Holwell Monument Removal Movement. As part of this movement, good evening Avasthi, good evening Abdul, good evening Siksha. So as part of this movement, this Holwell Monument was constructed by a governor named Holwell in 1759-60. And why it was constructed? Because the British alleged that 123 British prisoners suffocated to death because they were kept in a very small room, very small prison cell. So 123 British prisoners suffocated to death. And to commemorate this event and to show the savagery of then Nawab, who was Siraj-ud-Daulah. So this had happened when? In 1756. So to commemorate those people who had died and to show the savagery, the brutality of Siraj-ud-Daulah, This monument was constructed by Holwell in 1759-60, and when this happened in 1756. So Subhash Chandra Bose, as you know, he was a true patriot, a nationalist. He said this monument should not remain here. It was erected in the middle of Calcutta. He said that this monument should be removed because it is against the Nawab Siraj-ud-Daulah, and so he launched this movement. During this movement, he was arrested on 3rd July 1940. So Subhash Chandra Bose was arrested and he was kept in prison. When he was kept in prison, there he started fast unto death. वहां पर भी hunger strike start कर दिया. For some time he was kept in jail, but then in December 1940 he was released from the jail and kept in house arrest in his own house. तो अपने ही घर में उनको house arrest कर दिया. So Bose under house arrest. In December 1940, Netaji was released and then he was kept under house arrest. Now what Netaji did was he escaped from his own home. He fled from his own home and British could not prevent it, could not see it happening. In fact, the guards were all around his house when he was kept under house arrest, but they were unable to prevent him from escaping. And then he escaped from his house. When he escaped? 17th January 1941. So then he escaped from his house, and where he went? First he went to Pakistan, Peshawar, from Pakistan to Kabul, from Kabul to Samarkand in Central Asia, and then from Samarkand to Moscow, and from Moscow to Berlin in Germany. So basically he wanted to go where? He wanted to go to Germany because Germany was fighting the Britain, so he wanted to ally with Germany and to throw out British from the country. Good evening, Parmila. So Netaji escaped from his home and he went where? He went to Berlin. When he went to Berlin, over there he met Hitler. He had a discussion with Hitler. Hitler gave him the prisoner of wars, Indian prisoner of wars. As you know, many of the Indian soldiers were in British Indian Army, and as part of British Army they were fighting in World War II. So Germany had 4,500 Indian prisoners of war. So those 4,500 soldiers who were of Indian origin, they prisoner of wars basically, they were given to Bose Sahab by Hitler. In addition, Hitler also allowed or supported Netaji for what? For AZAD HIND radio. So Netaji also started AZAD HIND radio. So one is AZAD HIND radio, where in Berlin only he did all these things. Out of these, he created a force over there that was called Free India Legion. Free Indian Legion. He created where? He created in Berlin only. So this was one initiative he did there. Then he started AZAD HIND radio over there, and over AZAD HIND radio only, if you see, this was the time when Quit India movement was starting in India. So he declared a support for Quit India movement. He appealed to the countrymen to support Gandhiji in this endeavor from Berlin itself on AZAD HIND radio. So that was one thing he did over there. In addition to that, he wanted a declaration from the German government. He wanted a declaration from the Axis powers. Who were Axis powers? Germany, Italy, Japan, all these people who were fighting against Britain, America, Russia, all these countries. So he wanted a declaration from these countries, Germany, Italy and Japan and others, for Indian independence. But they were reluctant. They were not giving that declaration. That's why they had disagreement. Bose Sahab was not happy with them because they were not issuing a declaration in the support of Indian independence. And so, after creating this Free Indian Legion, after having this AZAD HIND radio over there, he moved from there. He moved to which place? So, in February 1943, he took a submarine. And reached where? Reached Japan. If you see his journey, it is fascinating. How patriotic a person can be to free his country. He traveled from India all the way to Berlin through so many countries. When he saw that in Berlin his program was not succeeding, they were not cooperating, he again went to Japan. He took a submarine, he took a risk on his life. In World War II, he is having submarine for going to Japan. Then he reached Japan. When he reached Japan, it was May 1943. It was this time. And as you know, Japan was attacking the British colonies, French colonies, Dutch colonies in Southeast Asia. Whether it is Indonesia, whether it is Malaya, whether it is Singapore, whether it is Philippines, whether it is Vietnam, whether it is Burma, all these were British, French and Dutch colonies. So Japan was attacking them. Here again his role will start. But before starting his role, let's see the first phase of Indian National Army or Azad Hind Fauj. So first phase we will see, and then in second phase we will see the role of Subhash Chandra Bose. So in first phase what happened? In first phase there was an officer named Mohan Singh. Mohan Singh conceived this idea of having a Indian National Army. It was his idea. He was a soldier of British Indian Army. He had surrendered to Japan. So basically Mohan Singh was what? He was a prisoner of war. He conceived this idea of having an Indian National Army. So if we see from that perspective, Indian National Army was formed under the leadership of Mohan Singh by September 1942. So this had formed already. Before Netaji, already Indian National Army was formed by September 1942, where in the Southeast Asia. Japan was supporting in forming this. At the same time, in June 1942, one more thing happened. There is another person, another freedom fighter, Ras Bihari Bose. You must have heard about him. Again, a great freedom fighter, great nationalist, great patriot. He had formed Indian Independence League. So he had formed Indian Independence League over there in June 1942. So basically this league is having an army called INA. But if you see Ras Bihari Bose, he was more than 50-year-old. He was a very aged person. So he was not fit for this task of having India Independence League over there. But anyway, he was there. Mohan Singh was there. Mohan Singh had formed Indian National Army. But in the meantime, disagreement happened between Mohan Singh and the Japanese government. On what they had the disagreement? Disagreement happened because they were not supporting, they were not considering the Indian National Army as an allied army. They were considering that as a subsidiary force, as a supporting arm. And over this, Mohan Singh had a difference with Japanese. So Mohan Singh was arrested by the Japanese and he was kept behind the bars. तो उन्होंने मोहन सिंह को गिरफ्तार कर लिया और मोहन सिंह को जेल के अंदर डाल दिया. तो इस तरह से when Mohan Singh was arrested, the first INA experiment collapsed. It collapsed. Why it collapsed? Because disagreement between Mohan Singh and the Japanese government. Disagreement happened. When disagreement happened, Mohan Singh was arrested and put behind bars. Now the way was clear for Subhash Chandra Bose. When Mohan Singh was arrested, there was no leadership for the Azad Hind Fauj. So who was left behind? Only Subhash Chandra Bose was there. And from here, the role of Subhash Chandra Bose start. As I told you, he reached Japan in submarine, and then in October 1943, he established a provisional government. He established a provisional government of Free India over there in Singapore. So he established what? Provisional government of Free India. And 9 countries, including Germany, Japan, Italy, and 6 others considered this government, recognized this government. So this was one thing. Now, when you are forming a sovereign government, you should have an army also. And so came the need for Azad Hind Fauj. So this was basically the second phase. The second phase of INA. First phase under Mohan Singh collapsed. Second phase under Subhash Chandra Bose was Azad Hind Fauj or Indian National Army. So Subhash Chandra Bose was not just the head of this provisional government of Free India. He was also commander-in-chief of this Azad Hind Fauj or Indian National Army. When he assumed the leadership, you know, Subhash Chandra Bose was very famous over there. Lot of people showed interest to join this army, and not just the prisoner of wars, but also the Indian civilians of Indian origin. They also showed support, and so we are seeing that more than 40,000 people joined this Indian National Army under the leadership of Subhash Chandra Bose. In addition to that, if we see, Subhash Chandra Bose had also a women regiment called Rani Jhansi Regiment. He had formed this also. See how visionary he was. At that point of time, in no other country there was a women regiment, but Subhash Chandra Bose under his Indian National Army Azad Hind Fauj had also a Rani Jhansi regiment, and Lakshmi Subramaniam was made the head of this Rani Jhansi regiment. So that was one development which happened. As we see, lot of enthusiasm, lot of support, people donating money for Indian National Army. All these things were happening. And then in March, April 1944, we see what is called the Imphal campaign. What is called the Imphal campaign? What is Imphal campaign? In Imphal campaign, the Japanese launched an attack on the British inside India to liberate India from Britain. And as part of that Japanese army, there were 2 regiments of Indian National Army also. So in this, there were Japanese Army plus Indian National Army also. These 2 were there. In Imphal campaign, if we see, On ground, if we see, on land, if we see, initially this combined force was quite successful, but they did not have the air power, and British launched air attack on them. And because of that air attack, plus they had also faced the challenge of logistics. They were not having food, they were not having arms and ammunitions, and because of these things plus lack of air power, we see that this Imphal campaign ended in disaster. This ended in disaster. It could not succeed in freeing India militarily. So basically, this led to what? This led to shattering of the dream of freeing India militarily. Freeing India militarily. ये fail हो गया. It could not succeed in throwing the British out of India. And why it failed? Because as I told you, lack of air power, lack of arms, ammunitions, lack of food supply. Plus, for INA, there was another challenge, that was lack of cooperation from Japanese army. Lack of cooperation from the Japanese army. And so this experiment failed. The second INA experiment, the second phase also failed. But as you know, Netaji was not going to stop. Again he thought that I will go to Russia, I will go to Moscow, and from there again I will start something. Again I will try to organize something for freeing India. But as you know, he died in an air crash while going to the Moscow in August 1945. And by that time, the Allied forces, Britain, France, US, they had also already won this Second World War. So as you know that in August 1945, Netaji died. However, there is a lot of controversy about his death, but this is what is largely accepted in most of the books. But this INA experiment doesn't end here. This was just the phase of struggle outside India. This INA struggle had another political impact in India, and that was INA trials. We'll see next the INA trials. This INA trials created lot of enthusiasm in India, lot of response in India, and it proved to be the last nail in the coffin of the British Empire. So what was INA trial? So if we see INA trial, what happened that all these INA soldiers, they again surrendered. They were basically arrested by the British. They were interrogated by the British and transported back to India. So more than 20,000 soldiers, they were transported to India. Now all these INA soldiers, INA officers, when they were transported, good evening Rinki, so when they were transported to India, British thought that we should prosecute them, they should face the trial. Why? Because if we do not conduct trial, then it will be an indication of weakness. It will be an indication of weakness, first thing. Second thing, the loyalty. If we do not, loyalty of army will be compromised. So it was important to conduct a trial of these soldiers who had participated in war against the Britain, and they should face the consequence for this. Because if we do not conduct a fair trial, it will be a sign of weakness and it will have an impact upon the loyalty of the army. That is what the British government thought. And so they started this trial. But before the start of the trial, All India Congress Committee in September 1945 decided that we will have a defense committee who will defend these people, these INA soldiers, these INA officers in the trial. And in this defense committee, who were the members? Defense committee was constituted, and in this defense committee there was Bhulabhai Desai, there was Jawaharlal Nehru, there was Tej Bahadur Sapru, there was another Asaf Ali, the husband of Aruna Asaf Ali was Asaf Ali. So Asaf Ali was there, Tej Bahadur Sapru was there, Jawaharlal Nehru was there, Bhulabhai Desai was there. All these were members of what? Defense committee constituted by the Congress to defend these INA soldiers. So this was done. And what British did is, in November 1945, they started the first trial. And for first trial, they chose the place of Red Fort. They thought that if we do it from Red Fort, people will see it, people will recognize that yes, they were traitors, they fought against the British, and a sympathy will emerge for the Britain. But the reverse happened. So the first trial opened on 5 November. And as we will see, from 5 November to 11 November. So from 5 to 11 November, we will see INA week was celebrated, INA week was declared. Then on 12th November, INA day was celebrated. People were in support of these INA soldiers. So INA week, INA day, INA week, all these were celebrated. In addition to that, if we see the 3 officers who were to be tried, what were their name? So first was P.K. Sehgal. Second was G.S. Dhillon. And third was Shahnawaz Khan. So these were the 3 officers who were to face trial. If we see, one is Hindu, one is Sikh, and the other is Muslim. Now 2-3 things happened because of this trial. When the trial started, 2-3 things happened. What happened? First, as the trial happened, as you know, in trial, all the details are revealed. So these people were asked questions and they answered that in trial. And these replies started getting printed in the newspapers, in pamphlets. When these things reached people realized that they are not traitors. They are the patriots of highest order. They have fought for liberating our country. How can they tried for treason? How can they be tried for murder? And then slowly, over 2 month time, a huge mass upsurge started in India. In favor of these patriots, these INA soldiers. People started demonstrations in their favor. The people started protest against the British in a number of places, including Bombay, Calcutta, Madras, Karachi. All these places, protest happened, demonstrations happened to stop this trial, and in praise, in support of these people. Relief fund, INA relief fund was created. People donated generously to those relief fund also. So a huge movement was created in favor of these people. In addition to that, as we have seen, unprecedented mass upsurge. There was another reason for this. One was support of all parties. Support of all parties. As we know, Congress, Muslim League, these were fighting for different issues. But when it came to INA trial, whether it was Congress, whether it was Muslim League, whether it is Unionist Party, whether it is RSS, Hindu Mahasabha, Communist Party, all the parties supported for the stoppage of these trials, for freeing these people. These are the patriots. So support of all parties was there. Second, communal harmony. Communal harmony, because coincidentally in first trial the three people were selected, where one was Hindu, one was Sikh, and other was Muslim. So what we see is unified support from all the people, support from all communities, whether Hindu, Muslim, Sikh, everyone came in support. And that's why we see what? Unprecedented mass upsurge in favor of these INA soldiers. So that is one development which happened during this. In addition to that, different types of pamphlets were circulated. One pamphlet was Patriots, Not Traitors, which became very viral in those days. Then there was one poster that read, for every INA soldier sentenced, 20 English dogs will be killed, will be given death. People became very emotional. Basically, this trial at Red Fort emotionalized the issue. People got connected with these people. They felt sympathetic towards their cause. They felt that these are patriots of the highest orders. And so, what we see, that the British thought that this trial is not happening in the right direction. If we sentence these people, it will boomerang on us. It will lead to different disastrous consequences. In fact, the army, the people from army participated in INA demonstration in their whole uniform. Royal Indian Air Force people donated to the INA relief fund. All these things were happening, and that's why, what was the impact of this demonstration? If we see the impacts, the commander-in-chief was forced to free these people. In trial, all these people were convicted. All these people were found guilty. But in spite of that, they were freed. They were freed on 3rd Jan 1946. In spite of conviction, they were freed. Why? Because the commander-in-chief did not have a choice. He was forced to show leniency towards them. In addition to that, if we see, wherever these people went, they got heroes welcome. People came in support of them, whether it is Delhi, whether it is Lahore, wherever these three officers went, they received heroes welcome. But the most important thing, effect or impact of INA trial was the impact on army. If we see the 1942 movement, Quit India movement, the bulwark of British rule, the main force of British rule, the apparatus, the reliable apparatus of British rule, if we see, the reliable apparatus of British rule, if we see, it was armed forces. It was armed forces. We had seen that how people were machine gunned from the low flying aircrafts during Quit India movement. So what was the main defense? Armed forces. And what we see in this movement, that the loyalty of the armed forces, whether it is the army or the air force, that was under doubt, that was under suspicion. And so the British became aware that their last pillar of support, which was helping them in ruling India, that is also crumbling, that is also getting destroyed. And if the army also loses its loyalty, no one can save them in India. No one can protect the British Empire in India. That's why this movement, this trial was a very important landmark, very important milestone in India's freedom struggle. It showed to the British that now is the time to pack our bags and leave India, because the army on which we are relying so heavily, that is now also getting politicized, that is also sympathetic towards the cause of Indian National Army, that is also donating fund to the INA Relief Fund, that is also participating in the protest in their uniform, full uniform. Army soldiers were participating, and that's why this had a great impact in India's freedom struggle. So that's all. In today's lecture, we have covered INA and we have covered the INA trial and how it impacted the course of our freedom struggle. Good evening, Jakia. So thank you all of you. If you have any doubt, any questions, feel free to ask. That's all in today's lecture. If you have any doubt, any query, feel free to ask. I think that's all from my side. Thank you.